exciting. RCSD has planned for you tonight. Starting with this good meal, a special program that should bring back some memories for all of us, and some comments and presentations from guests and friends. And later on have some great music and dancing. So sit back, enjoy your meal and the program, and later on let's have a great time of fun and fellowship, getting to know each other. Dancers from the past and present.
Mrs. Annie G. Rucker, who is a member of the Rutherford County School Board and longtime friend of Rutherford County Square Dance. Mr. and Mrs. Brian Kaufman, who is representing Opryland Talents. The Rutherford County Square Dancers work with them often these days. Mr. and Mrs. Don Sprague, who after a few years with Tennessee Trailblazers took over the driving for the Rutherford County Square Dancers and have been driving for them for the past 10 years at least, and I guess over 1 million miles, Mr. and Mrs. Sprague. Mr. Bill Smith was here earlier, who is the chairman of the board for the Cannon County Bank of Commerce, had to leave. He's also the organizer of the Good Old Days, but he was here to extend his greetings from Cannon County. Also, Mrs. Christine Dillon, who's vice president of the Cannon County Bank of Commerce. And Mrs. Jerry Jamison. Where did she get off? Okay, we'll get back to her. Representing Mayor Joe Jackson's office, former Mayor Hollis Westbrook, who is now honorary mayor of Cannonsburg, and is representing Mayor Joe Jackson. I believe you've got a little presentation you need to make.
During this time, it was my privilege to observe the development of some of the finest talent, finest young people of this county, one of whom is our honoree tonight. Steve Cates has made a very worthwhile and valuable contribution towards the improvement and enrichment of the quality of life which we know and enjoy today. It is very fitting and appropriate that Steve is being honored on this occasion. And on behalf of Mayor Joe B. Jackson, the people of Murfreesboro and Rutherford County, I want to present a proclamation by Mayor Jackson, which is an attempt to convey to Steve our appreciation and our thanks to him for directing his talents in a direction which has enriched and broadened our horizons. I shall now read the proclamation. Whereas this celebration is being held in honor of Steve Cates and his 20th anniversary as director of the Rutherford County Square Dancers, and whereas Steve Cates has given his time, knowledge, and talents unselfishly for 20 years, and whereas Steve Cates has worked diligently to plan trips and exhibitions all over the world, and whereas with the help of Steve Cates' expertise, the Rutherford County Square Dances have received many honors and awards, and whereas the city of Murfreesboro has reaped many benefits as a result of the ambassadorship of Steve Cates and his dancers all over this country and also in many foreign countries. Now therefore I, Joe B. Jackson, Mayor, on behalf of the city of Murfreesboro, do hereby proclaim this 13th day of June, 1987, as Steve Cates Day. Signed, Mayor Joe B. Jackson. Steve, in the name of Mayor Joe B. Jackson, I hereby present you with this proclamation.
Congratulations.
Yes, fellow square dancers, I came prepared to dance tonight. I believe we're going to do a little dance. Let me say my wife Ruth, who knows Steve very well and consider him a very dear friend, is sick and couldn't be here tonight, and sends her regrets. Let me say that not only as a representative of the Rutherford County Board of Education, but as a county commissioner and as a citizen, is the way that I want to communicate to you tonight, the way I feel about the work that our honoree has accomplished in the interest of humanity throughout the world. I think the first thing we could say is his dedication to youth. And this is one of the most noble things I think that we can do anywhere, and I think Steve has done this over the years. But more than this, and not only the recognition for Rutherford County and the Rutherford County Square Dancers, but I'm thoroughly convinced that the type of activities that these groups have done over the years, if we had more of this throughout the world, the competitive sports, the square dancers, the other groups of people throughout the world, mingling and living and sharing together, we would not be having wars, but we would be having peace. You know, the leaders of nations declare war. Peace only prevails as long as the citizens love and care and respect each other. And I want to say to you that I feel every time I go to the street festival, I'm just thrilled to death. And as county commissioner, I think Mr. Case can tell you I was always one of the early supporters in trying to do this. And I really feel that it's one of the great things that has been done for this country. We just need more of them. I think he's dedicated his life to this, and I want to say that I'm grateful to him. And on behalf of the Board of Education, when we open up Riverdale again this fall, Steve, we will be placing a book there in appreciation of the work that you've done, and we'll try to have a little ceremony when the faculty and the staff is back, and at that time, and we are grateful to you for the work that you've rendered to the kids in Rutherford County. But I have a little special something that I want to do for you tonight as a special treat. Dancing, you do a lot of things. I saw a young sailor here tonight, didn't I? Saw him about 43 years ago. I was about your age, and I was about 17 or 18 years old, and I had never danced anything except square dancing. And they had a big name band at the base, and I went down there that night, and all the beautiful girls, but I had never done any other kind of dancing. And I struggled all night, and I still, the next morning, I only had done square dancing. But later, I'll introduce some other things besides square dancing. So tonight, the many years that Steve has contributed to this effort, and you know, he's not only a good leader, but he's knowledgeable of the whole background and the history of square dancing. But I thought every man has to have a little spice in his life somewhere and expand his horizons. So tonight, I want to pay a special tribute to Steve, and I want to give him a special, Steve, if you would come up, please. This is the official guide to Latin dancing. Easy to follow instructions. There will be many senoritas in your life if you follow instructions step by step. Please, I'd appreciate you for all the work that you've done. I hope you take this music. I truly respect your friendship and all the work that you've done so much.
It is indeed a privilege for me to be here. I don't know how many years I've been knowing Steve, but it wasn't because I'm a square dancer. I certainly respect the total family. And I don't think Steve, if he'd have got married, he could have done what he's done. I believe that's one of the factors that's made this occasion possible. When you have other controls on you, it kind of limits the activity. So the Lord puts us here and lets us go our way to do the things we can do best. And I think this has happened to Steve, and I think it's a great tribute tonight for many people that have taken part in the square dance program over these 20 years. It's hard to believe how many lives he's touched. And I'd like also to emphasize the fact that he's probably the best international ambassador we've had from the state of Tennessee. But you know, most of the delegates go to the kings and the queens and the presidents. These kids and Steve go to the people, and that's where it really counts. It's hard to measure really what has the impact of this program through the years. I have tried to be where they are when they come here from other countries and enjoy the fellowship. You can't understand what they're saying, but they smile and they're happy to see you and all that, and it's a great experience. County Commissioner, I served several years with Jerry here, including serving as Director of Rutherford County Square Dancing. Whereas Steve Cates is being honored by friends and co-workers who are deeply appreciative of his many contributions to the community through the years. Whereas not only has Steve Cates served his community through his work, the Rutherford County Square Dancers, but has also been an educator in Rutherford County. Whereas these years of service have been marked by exemplary and dedicated effort toward the welfare and enlightenment of our youth. Whereas throughout his life he has earned the respect of other leaders and the affection of a host of area residents who are proud to call him friend. Whereas Steve Cates has been an active participant in community affairs and projects that have been a powerful influence for good in the growth and progress of this community. Now therefore I, John B. Mankin, by virtue of the authority vested in me as county executive, and on behalf of the entire Rutherford County Board of Commissioners, all our citizens, do hereby tender to Steve Cates this proclamation, extending to him our deep appreciation for his distinguished service and our best wishes for continued success in all his future endeavors. Signed by County Executive John B. Mankin, June the 13th, 1987. Steve, thank you for doing a good job, buddy.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Mrs. Jameson, Gary Jameson was out of the room a while ago when we recognized her. She has been a friend of Rutherford County Square Dancers a long time, has traveled, is a singer, is a musician, and now is an agent with meeting services. And I think she's got a few words she'd like to say.
1974 was it, in Rugby, Tennessee, on the back porch of this wonderful old house. Steve Cates and the group came up and did their program for the history of the dance, folk dance, up from bars dances and the square dance, the bug dance. And I was so impressed. At that time I was singing. And we sort of followed each other over the years. One time I called Steve and I said, would you go with me to Ohio? And he brought a bunch of the kids, and we went up there for an art festival and came right back. And I think we all slept on the bus. And he was wonderful and has always been very supportive of what I've done. I'd call him and say, well, you know, I'm still singing, or I'm just telling stories, or I'm doing this, that, and the other. And he said, well, why don't you just get a band and come along with us and let's go to Europe for a tour. You know, you can't imagine what that does to a person who really has to stay home and make a living. But it was a wonderful idea, and I wish I was really a good enough musician to have done it. But now, what's the most exciting thing is I work with a company that has the opportunity to book Steve and your group on entertainment. We just used you for a nice entertainment for some people with the United States Steel Institute, and they loved it, and they were so impressed, and we're so proud when we can send people away from Nashville having had the experience of the Rutherford County Square Dancers and the Cripple Creek Hoggers. Thank you so much for inviting me tonight, and thanks for Steve.
Many rehearsals as that group struggled and tried to get all of their steps together. Steve Cates was always there with them, seeing that they did it right. I know I was impressed with the square dancers from those early days on, and can remember also conversations with Steve where we said that wouldn't it be great if this group stayed together? They could really go places, might even get out of the state, who knows? And my goodness, look at where they are today. In those early years when Steve still had the square dance group at Kittle, I can remember some very tough competition between...
Let me explain it to you if you weren't. In April 1967, a weekend trip to Camp Woodley was the reward for about 20 Kittrell 4-H'ers who had done all of their 4-H project work. They had so much fun square dancing during the weekend that practice was begun to ready this group for the June 4-H Share the Fun County contest. After hours of hard work, the group was rewarded by winning both the county and the District 2 4-H Share the Fun contests, which entitled them to perform at the State 4-H Roundup in Knoxville. This was a large achievement for this group in such a short time. And then they went on. The first out-of-state trip for the Kittrell 4-H Square Dancers, as they were then called, was to the National Folk Festival in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. An important step here was the meeting of Sarah Gertrude Knott, who introduced them to many new dances, especially to the singing games. Other 4-H'ers in the county were also interested and jealous of this group and wanted to join. So in the summer of 1969, membership was open to any members in Rutherford County. Thus, the Rutherford County Square Dance name was added to the group. A new aspect of dance was added in '69 after 4 members went to the Pine Woods Camp at Buzzards Bay, Massachusetts to learn about the English ancestry of the dance. Sword, Morris, and country dancers were added to their program at this time. '69 was a busy year, for also this year the group attended the National Folk Festival held at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. A second important person was introduced to them this year, May Gadd. She was the director of the Country Dance and Song Society of America. Miss Gadd was to become a great friend both to Steve Cates and to the Rutherford County Square Dancers. There have been many highlight trips in the dancers' past which have taken them far and wide across these United States and also around the world. Ben's statement certainly did come true. They certainly did get out of Rutherford County. In 1970, A Summer in the Parks was a series for the National Park Service performed in Washington, D.C. This venture began a cooperative effort between the National Folk Festival Association and the National Park Service. In 1971, the American Folkways program was a 13-week performance in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park for the group. 1972 brought the first long U.S. tour to the western states and to Mexico. About this same time, Florida trips were begun during spring break for a little fun, relaxation, and performing. 1973 held a second western tour. The dancers were really building a reputation at this time all across the United States. Also in this year was the first overseas tour. A group of dancers performed for 5 weeks in Romania through the Friendship Ambassadors program. In 1974, the highlight was performing on a Caribbean cruise ship. On land and sea, the dancers would go anywhere. 1976 was the perfect time for a group of Appalachian square dancers to perform as bicentennial dancers. They represented our entire state of Tennessee and Philadelphia at the United States Bicentennial Celebration. In 1977, the first performance was made by the group in a sea-off festival in San Juan, Puerto Rico. After meeting Miss Eileen McLean, many contacts were made, and the folk festival scene was just beginning. for RCSD. In 1979 then, their first European tour was held, and this was to France and Spain. In the meantime, in 1980, a group of former dancers met for a potluck supper, as I recall, and a little bit of reminiscing. After some dancing just for fun, they decided they weren't too old to dance after all, and another group emerged, the Cripple Creek Cloggers. This was begun for the adult dancers. Soon this group was also performing all across Middle Tennessee. Members from both groups then joined together to make several more long tours in more recent years. These trips led to Spain, Portugal, and Morocco in 1981, to Holland, Hungary, Germany, Nice, France, and Austria in 1982, England, Ireland, Belgium, and Conflans, France in 1983. A Canadian tour was the highlight of 1984 with performances in Drummondville, Montreal, and Quebec City. 1985 was another European tour to Italy and to France. And this year, as many of you know, the group is headed on another Western tour to the Folk Festival in Rexburg, Idaho. Along about the same time all of this was happening, in some words, we want you to reminisce just a little bit more through a slide presentation which has been taken from old...
Thank you very much, and certainly any of the proclamations and special things presented by our special guests this evening are to all of us, not just to me, but to our group and to all those who have been a part of our group in the past. And I hope you feel that, and I want you to know that for sure. I want to say a special welcome to our families, to my family, and to the families of our dancers through the years. It's been good to see so many of you. Also to those special guests that have been recognized, and others too that might be here that we haven't met yet this evening, because we had several folks who were invited that should be invited to be with us on this special occasion, people who have meant a lot to us through the years. To our dancers, former dancers and present dancers, to the members of the press, and to other people that have come to be with us on this very exciting and very pleasing occasion. It's good that we could be together to reminisce and to have a good meal. Eating has been a great part of our dancing through the years. And although it hasn't always been exactly what we wanted, there's always been something memorable about all of those meals that we've shared together wherever they've been, and we could make a long list of that. It's a bittersweet time. As a cousin of mine is wont to say, it's a shame to be alive when so many brave are dead, and I guess we could think about that a little bit. I've really looked forward to being with you this evening, but I've dreaded it a little bit too. I've gone through a lot of old poems that we used to have until the last one got to be 15 pages typewritten, and I decided maybe we had too many activities for a yearly poem, so we don't have those really anymore. I've looked through a lot of things, pictures. I didn't mean to go back and look through everything. I didn't have time, and I won't say I meant to. This same cousin always says that meant to is a sidekick for never will, and so I really didn't mean to look through everything, but I did look through lots of things. I don't have a book, and I guess that is a disappointment to some of you who said that I should write a book, and some of you who've nosed around looking to see what I might be keeping in my notes to put in that book. But I assure you I haven't kept nearly enough, and I don't remember nearly enough, but I might remember just enough in case some of you want to be too wise about things that have gone on. I haven't lost my memory at all. So much that I could have written tonight to say, I've left out better things than I'm going to say, be sure of that. It's worried me because it seems like after 20 years there ought to be something profound to be said, and I haven't thought of anything that's profound. It seems like after 20 years of experience that I ought to be able to make a profound statement. I might be like the farmer who said he had 20 years of experience, but someone who had been observing him said, no, he had 1 year of experience 20 times, and there's a big difference to that. I hope I'm not like the latter, but I very well could be. Anyway, I know that a lot of you have come back, and have come back expecting certain things. and I just really have worried that in my part of the evening and the preparations, I wouldn't live up to your expectations. Certain person you thought I should remember, a certain incident, a certain performance, a certain place, a funny happening. I just am really worried about not being able to do that. Although none of you have all worked with one another at any one particular time, all of you who've been dancers and many of you who've been parents and families have worked with me over the years. So I'm the connection, and that's been an awesome responsibility and one that really has bothered me. I want to fulfill your expectations. I don't know if do I look old enough? I don't want to be too silly, but will I laugh enough, those are things that I've thought about a lot and worried about. I don't want to be too quiet. But it's just really a big responsibility, and it's worried me. But I do remember a lot, and I want to go through some of that, maybe too much of that, before I finish. I remember you and things you've done and things we've done and things we're doing, and your families and various places we've been, what the music was like, what kind of shape the stage was in, and all that kind of thing that you'll share with me as you think back through the years. I won't remember each name, and especially ladies, you'll forgive me if I use your maiden name. I used to try to remember all the married names, but you see, some of you have changed those names so many times. So that got to be very confusing. I think I could present you haven't given any awards tonight. The best, the most unusual outfit, and all those kinds of things. Some of you I know have been making note in whispered groups as to whom those awards should go. I think I know the one who holds the record for the most name changes, but I won't mention her because I could be wrong. She hasn't had that many. But anyway, I won't remember all your new names, but I think I'll remember all your names from the beginning. Most of all, though, some of you folks who are old-timers don't know and don't think when we talk about things that happened a long time ago that sometimes my mind is not right on that, because you see, my mind is occupied with what Brian Kaufman has set up at Opryland a week from tomorrow night. That's 2 different shows at the same time for 2 groups of Rutherford County square dancers and Cripple Creek cloggers, which, is easy to do, but it requires some thought. It's a July the 3rd wedding reception presided over by a lady that's really one of the most difficult to deal with that I've ever dealt with, and those of you who've been with me know I've dealt with some pretty hard-nosed folks. It's thinking about practice next week and the packing list and the itinerary for the Western tour and who's really going to be ready and who isn't, although they all seem to be ready. But as I'll mention later, Mrs. Stroop and others along with me know that's the time to really worry the most, when everything looks like it's okay and things look like they're in the very best shape possible. So those things occupy me. Thinking about recruiting new dancers, thinking about a trip to Sweden and Finland and Scotland and England in 1988, thinking about the CEOF meeting this September, thinking about other things connected with our summer schedule and with things that are coming up in the winter and spring next year. And if I really wanted to worry, I could think about what's going to happen if they tear down the Ag Center. Every now and then you read that in the paper, and it's an aggravating old building, but it's a pretty good old building, and we certainly enjoy it and have enjoyed it through the years. So there are a lot of things I could think about, musicians and all that kind of thing, if I wanted to think. So if I don't remember exactly what you're talking about when you reminisce with me, then it's because my mind, when it comes to square dancing, is often first and foremost on what's happening now and what's doing now. So despite the fact that some of you really secretly thought, and openly stated at the time that our organization might just, and probably would just fold up when you had to depart, it really hasn't folded up. And even though you may still feel sorry for me, and a lot of you do when you come and view what we're doing now, shake your head a little bit. Often parents do this a lot. We have a great group of dancers. We have an active, viable, energetic, community-oriented, state-oriented, and nationally and internationally oriented organization at this time that we're proud of. And if you don't remember anything else from what I have to say, I hope those of you who are not dancers now and who have been dancers in the past along with your families will remember that that this organization is able to be active and viable because it is true we're a part of all that we have met. And what we do today, every achievement, every accomplishment, everything that we can do that is for the good is due to the contribution that folks like you have made through these 20 years. I think really a lot of times dancers and their families don't realize this. They don't feel a closeness to this. And I hope that you will feel that and know that because it's true. The things that you have been able to do in 68 or 71 or 81, the things that you did in those times have made it possible for us to do the things that are good today. Now, more than just knowing this, I hope you'll feel a responsibility perhaps to help us out today. We do have a place for dancers of all ages, and I appreciate that. So we're glad to have you at any time to help us remember things we might have forgotten because we can't keep up with everything. We can learn some new things and review some old things, but there's no way we can keep everything, and we can count on you to do that. We know that a lot of you touch a lot of organizations that help folks like us, and we're always in need of help. We don't do as many chili suppers and Christmas tree sales and things of that type. And by the way, I do have so many of these turkey shoot targets in my attic, and I wondered if it would be okay on the 20th anniversary if I could throw all of them away because they sure are piling up, and I really don't intend to ever have another turkey shoot, although we had some good ones in our day. But you know groups that help groups like us who are worthy and deserving. Foundations, you know, charitable organizations, people who have money individually and want to help. Some of you have done quite well financially, or so your parents tell me. Some of you have married awfully well, so your parents tell me. And so you might be able to help us in a way that would help us to keep going financially. We always need those things. We always can use your input, and those are things that we must remember and that I want you to remember as you think about patting yourself on the back for what you've helped us to be able to do today. Because it's all those folks who've been shoe repair people or bus drivers or musicians, those who've been costume makers or repairers or chaperones, those who've been nurses, or as well as dancers, and all those other folks who've joined in with us, who blazed the trail to Camp Woodley, to the Blue Barn, to the Porterfield Barn Dance, to the television show in Nashville on those early Sunday mornings, run by some fella, and I still see him around with a little toupee that flaps up and down. I can't recall his name, thank goodness. Those who've been to the Nazarene camp, those who've ridden school buses, Penny Linebaugh, what on earth would you think if I loaded you on a school bus to go to Rexburg, Idaho? I just wondered. But you know, we've done that and we're glad to do it. But if you've done any of those things, then of course you've been a part of what we are today. And I invite you to come along with me for really the best is yet to be, whether we last 20 days or 20 weeks or 20 more years. And I know when the conclusion comes, there's someone ready to say, I knew it would never last. Because I have had that run by me a few times in 20 years. And I know that will be said. But we do look forward to a great future as we think about the present. And regardless of the existence of the organization, as long as someone can remember the Franklin County Swing, as long as someone can teach the Paw Paw Patch or Old Dan Tucker, as long as someone remembers someone who's showed somebody how to do right hand across and how are you and left and back and how to do, then we have done what we didn't really set out to do, but what has been a part of our existence and the main part now, and that is to help preserve this tradition of dancing in this area that we want to continue on through the years, past us and past this organization and past those folks we know today. Now, we used to have those poems every year, and we could have started out tonight with something that came from one of them. This is a year hard to cover in a few simple verses. It's a year that brought money out of most of your purses. It's a year that brought victory and national fame to a fine group of young people, the Rutherford County Square Dancers by name. Incidents occurred in all of those poems. We were settled in the Holiday Inn in Albuquerque. Everyone was happy, feeling perky, when a lady of loose morals in the room next door came out clad in a curtain stomping the floor. She dropped her dog Fifi as she screamed at our group. Pushed to get that dog, minus the curtain, how our dancers did hoop. So we could look at a lot of those things, but I do want to look, first of all, at people, because I think it is people that we have to remember and know about and think about. Notable people, as Dolly Parton says, and what a jewel she was to work with. I've got the good picture of her. Some of you have put her, some of you ladies have put her in that pink costume and told us all about the process. But she was great to work with when we did the 50th anniversary of the Grand Ole Opry. But she says, back through the years, I am wandering back to the days of our youth, and it's people that I see, I think, most of all, notable people, interesting people, insignificant people, aggravating people. We've had our share of those, of course, to deal with, and maybe each of us has been that way a little bit from time to time. Miss Ella Costner, we must remember her. The palm reading, the poems of the Smokies. She told us a lot about her day and time and the things she'd been through in her life. And along with her and the smell of off on the campgrounds in the Great Smokies, we had the Lefevre family. My, those kids were aggravating, weren't they? We had Lee and Jean Schilling and the path that led to the purple two-seater out back. Surely you haven't forgotten that. We had those teachers at Kittrell that worried about us tearing up the stage and how hard we did try to dance. In fact, Donnie McKnight loosened a tap or two, I think, to do that a time or two, to just keep them on their toes. Sarah Gertrude Knott, Mike Smith, did you see the feather in her hair? It is there. I wanted to be sure that you saw that. That wasn't just something that we thought of in Lafayette Park in Washington, D.C. Irma Bombeck really came to visit us in Murfreesboro. Jim Morrison, Nancy Sinatra at the Sahara Tahoe, Dean Martin and Dean Martin Presents Music Country, May Gadd at Pine Woods, Knoxville, Murfreesboro, a big celebration at the Coulters. Irene McLean in Puerto Rico, White Sands and Blue Water. Dinah Shore, Henry Corsage, Bob Smith in Idaho, Cousin Thelma, her costumes, the Florida Folk Festival and the First Streaker down there. They finally closed her down for a woman, but anyway, we enjoyed it while we went. Our families, our parents, and I even have a poem I found written by one of our parents. What comes to mind when we hear the word trip? Make those petty pants and take up that slip. Trim your hair and lengthen your pants. Our coach will be desperate before he lets you dance. And unless it's with danger you like to flirt, hurry to the Purple Cow and buy that new shirt. But all of this fades when you see them appear. It's their youthful charm that makes them so dear. Just think of the girls. Didn't they look pretty? Cynthia, Ginger, Brenda, and Kitty. Sandra and Vicki, Janet and Rita. On any trip, did they ever look neater? Think of the men, they think they're that age. Terry and Steve, Doug and Paige, Mark, Gary, Doug and John, all were sharp in the togs they had on. My thoughts as they left in a sonic roar, 3 days without having to iron that damn pinafore. And of course, as we think about our families and the folks that have worked with us, we have to think about our chaperones. They've been many and varied. Clyde Elrod was one of the first with his good wife, Catherine, loyal and true, and even though he did let those boys escape one night at the Nazarene camp, we forgave him, even though we had to tell him the next morning. We really questioned him about that. But he remedied that the next night by putting his own bunk firmly in front of the door. There was only one door. They didn't get out anymore. He's been loyal and true, and when the issue, I especially appreciated one time when the issue of slapping me came up by some strangers. Clyde stood up for me. He said, I might need slapping sometimes, but he didn't want strangers doing it. And I've always appreciated that. Elizabeth Vance, it's so good to see you tonight. She taught us that she liked blackberry pie, but not every day, and sweep your own front porch before you start sweeping mine. She was a chaperone we want to remember. Let's see these chaperones. Clyde and Catherine, stand up. We want to see who these people are. Elizabeth Vance, stand up back there. Help her up if she needs help. We're out performing because I've got too much along with these targets that I'm keeping in my attic, and I don't tie up tomatoes anymore, so there's no real reason for me to keep them. But I've been trained to do those things. What about the driver arrested in White Springs, Florida? What about Springtime Tallahassee? What about the records that I remember that were left in the trunk of a Chevrolet on a hot July day? All of our records, by the way. That was about 19 and a half years ago. Our barbecue pig at the Irbies, the water fight, Emily Burnett, I haven't forgotten that. Lisa Rowland, her tan, and being sick right on the Great Seal of the state of Oklahoma in the Capitol building. Lisa, that really. The Fool, played by Troy Bell. None has ever been better. Even David Powell was not as good with his fly open doing the Fool stuff. We wondered about that one. Scott Smith, Whit Davis, early in the morning. What a sight to see either of them getting up. And Whit, late at night, cowboy boots, a cowboy hat, something blue you were wearing at the Silver Springs Motel. We told you about that on the radio, but we didn't use your name. Hippies on the Swanee, seeing Pam Whitworth dancing at Adams 10 to go miles out of the way. And more than that, we had to depend on those people when we got there to provide us our room, our board, for several days. They weren't happy, but we sent Mrs. Street and the dancers out, and they won them over. We did give a show, but we were delayed and couldn't make it. Sherry Lane, I'll remember that. Melora and David Powell and Linda Alley. Oh, me. Slade, Kentucky, Wolf Trap, Romancing on the Bus and all. Al Hassel and Carrie Meyer, Gary Winrow and Jeff Smotherman and lots of others. Count Dracula Steps, thistle seats on a bus no one told me could have been air conditioned. Riding from High in Holland down to Nice. Oh, it was hot, and then it was freezing. I never knew what happened from Paris to Nice that made it turn so cold. Whit and Margie, you've slept through so much beautiful scenery. I hope you're looking at the pictures over there tonight so you can see it. Step in the bathrooms on the Tennessee Trailblazer. Don Spray wouldn't allow that. Dickie Irby forgetting her bra. And why did you turn around, Louise Zane? She was only in the 7th grade. What difference did it make? You took life in hand to turn your car, a little blue car, around in the middle of Broad Street with us not knowing what on earth was happening. To race back out on the Bradamore Road. Really no need in that. I guess you just reacted quickly. Reunion parties, we always had them after trips. Handshaking and greeting and dancing with the crowd. Tramping through cemeteries all over the world. We even got to be in a funeral procession in Holland and another one in Austria. Gator and Fiskars. Terror in the drive we had from Badajoz to Gibraltar. Now, I know the little guide criticized me severely because I wanted something cooler to drink than 100-degree water on a 100-degree day. I could take that. I was used to that. But getting after me because I didn't know it was a holiday in Spain, and the travel agent didn't tell me it was a holiday in Spain. So we had to think during all those, or I had to think, during all of those miles, would the ferry be there? Could we go? What would happen? It was really something. Cuneo and Norway Girls, and David Lee doing the questioning. Dad. Oh, I'll never forget those sounds as I was trying to sleep and the scraping of that suitcase on that concrete floor. And Mike Smith and David Lee rambling and looking. What on earth were you looking for? All the time I was trying to rest through all those cosmetics. I'll never forget that kind of thing, and we'll think about it a lot. Yes, as we think about those things, we think about in Sellers and Cosby and Inner Tubes and Sarah Elrod doing the laundry, red-headed Sarah, Gloria and Larry and Cynthia and what that little girl named Patty that you took under your wing, do you remember her? Organizing and naming CCC, a bear with tap shoes in the Great Smokies, Terry Brewer, remind Kitty of that. Training new dancers, throwing ties at Girl State. You got carried away that day. Jean Carruthers and her girls who couldn't do any wrong, we thought, until she and Robert and the girls rode a taxi from one airport to the other in New York before we ever got off on our trip and left Agner Percy's in that taxi, which we never saw again. Sunset Gap and Danville and the Grand Tetons in Winnemucca, Nevada, singing the old songs, Sarah and Elrod and John Carter on the accordion. Tijuana, meals at Shoney's, baked beans and banana pudding in a vegetable tray from the refrigerator. Emily Burnett, did you get that recipe? Shopping and meeting the Pope in Rome. School shows, Westminster Abbey. Special buck dancers, Steve Buckner, Candy Thurman, Brian Fogel, and others of past and present days. Folk Fest, Randy Thompson in a brewery in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. What would they ever have said at Woodbury Road Baptist Church if they had known that? The Eiffel Tower, the Tower of London, the White Cliffs of Dover. Cookie Prim rolling down grassy hillsides. Leah and her hairspray. Rana Day and those darn aches and pains. Shakertown, the Amana colonies, the Pennsylvania farmlands, the drive up the coast from LA to San Francisco. Minturno, celebrating birthdays, Kevin Carter and Poison Ivy. Hungary, crossing the border. Guards searching the bus. Quite an experience. Clipping hair on the road when he needed it. Melungeon, Sneedville, and Danny Page missing Chicago. Quite a memorable birthday. That's too long to read, although I'd like to read it. Danny Page was with us in Cosby. He had a big birthday. He's kind of like you, Mike Leffler. He always said if we just had stayed one day longer, you know, everything would have, he would have had a date with her if he could have just had one more day, one more hour, one more chance. We've been there 2 weeks, you know, and one more chance was all he needed. But he had someone waiting on him here in Murfreesboro, and he picked the wrong car. And that was the car driven by Mr. Carter, and I believe it was Mrs. Irby's car. And they had car trouble, and he had to be here that night. And I was with Mrs. Carter, and we had Mrs. German's mother, plus a lot of dancers, and we were traveling down the interstate, and we lost Mr. Carter and Mrs. Irby. Mrs. Carter got worried. Some dancers said they passed us, go on. They had Chicago tickets too. Other dancers said, oh, stop, they're behind us. So we went back, we didn't find them. We came back, we waited, and finally we came on. Well, they had trouble, and they hadn't passed us, and we didn't find them. They didn't get here for Chicago, but our cars did, and Danny Page once again could say he missed his big chance. The good list, the bad list, learning four corners. Why did we have to learn it in Portugal? I never did understand why we had to go to Portugal to learn that and practice that. And as we think of Mark and Kevin and Chuck and Barb and Carol and Murdy and Cindy, as we think of Julianne and Bill and John Lanham and Tiffany and Connie and Janice and Marcia and Angela and Claudia, Carla and Euphina and Mayla and Beth and Nathan and Jenny and Dale and Teresa and Kathy, Dennis and Lynn and Sandy and all those others, we can think about lots and lots of those memories. We performed in Rugby, a restored English town, and it's great if the local conditions don't get you down. We took a picnic lunch. Our trip wasn't aboard. Mrs. Stroop knocked in Pall Mall, but Mrs. Alvin York didn't come to the door. We met one of his sons down by the old mill and visited York's burial place, so peaceful and still. The girls thought they had it made and were having a laugh until they saw that their home, where they were staying, really did have a path. Becky screamed, Cynthia cried, Mrs. Stroop tried to calm them as she explained the chambers placed under each bedspread hem. But that didn't suit them, and they made her stand guard as they walked down the path to the back of the yard. Have you ever been to a Porterfield barn dance? If you haven't, we'll include you the next time we go. It's a great show. It's relaxing, educational, and like having a song to sing just to see Nora and David Powell have their fling. Sometimes, if we're lucky, there's supper too. Ray had groundhog, dog fennel tea, and even turtle stew. B.O. may be bad and the hay may be dusty, but the sights are interesting and friendship is lusty. First American National Bank gave us fun in the sun, but we had no time to waste. There was work to be done. New England was waiting, time for costume check, time for Mrs. Struth to really be a wreck. Are those shirts the same yellow? What about those purple petty pants? Anxious mothers wonder if anyone will ever get to dance. Will this have to be remade? The travel outfit's a sight. Are those videos costumes or just some she's borrowed for tonight? Woodley, where survival was the name of the game, and bath taking and the Collins River are one and the same. It's fine to go when the sun shines bright and the nights aglow with romantic moonlight. And it was, this particular year, Terry and company went on ahead, blazing the trail, airing every bed. Everything was great until we started to cook and found out the cooking utensils had certainly been took. We went to get water, turned on the spout, and what do you know, no water came out. We ran to the pump house to see what was wrong. What do you know, the darn pump was gone. But we had the Collins River, though it did make you shake, even if Mrs. Glenn and Martha Parsley didn't partake. And Mrs. Stroop's orders from the kitchen did rain. Who'll bear the water up from the spring? Every day, when we started to leave, Terry got in Mrs. Carter's way. The Opera House was near deserted, only auditioners in sight. We were ready to hit the stage with all of our might. We changed in the stairs dressing room amidst all kinds of dirt. And John had a long sleeve, not a short sleeve red shirt. Opening day came, we really were great. We felt so important as we went in the employees' gate. We had great fun as we ate in each area. The family settled down to the employees' cafeteria. It got hot near that gazebo, the humidity was high, and even with fans, we nearly did die. But we plugged right along through May, June, July. Pretty soon September stared us in the eye. We enjoyed it. It was wonderful meeting the people. Is that a sign? And it was interesting, wherever one might be, to watch our dancers on commercial network TV. There wasn't really much rhyme or reason to bedtimes, or rising times, or dress for the day. Everyone wanted it some other way. Who will take the first bath? Hopefully one each will be taken. And who will ride the front seat? Who will remember to smile at all whom we meet? Who will write the thank you card at the next stop? These are the things that make a director hot. Who will be my host's family? How many dogs will they own, or will they keep cats? Will tiny kids be allowed to roam? Or will it be similar to Villa number 2, the kids, no lights, and unusable water closets too? We can't please them all, the same old lament, but could we just please one? No, just couldn't make a dent. But when the record begins, or a buck dancer starts, or swords begin flashing, it brings joy to our hearts. And worries about food, roommates and such just don't really seem to matter that much. Things have been lost, doors shut in our face, restaurants have closed quickly, but we don't yield to pretended disgrace. Though we sometimes aren't recognized for our true worth, we know RCSD is the salt of the earth. We've danced on small stages, we've danced in the grass, we've even performed for a Sunday school class. We've listened to Gene Schilling sing her hosannas. We've journeyed to Fulton and eaten bananas. We've breakfast with Indians, we've supped with the hippies, we've waited for Rita, for her there no jiffies. We've danced with folks on hilltops while blown by cool breezes. We've listened while Mike Smith lectured on social diseases. Patty Cake Cocoa was one dance through which we all hopped, and as the hippie girls came round, our boys' eyes really popped. For the one fact we all declared could not be debated, those chicks just couldn't be more liberated. It was really a sight if the breeze was just right, and we were glad we weren't sharing their quarters that night. We performed for the Mormons, saw many an old church. We've been down and out, but never completely in the lurch. We've danced in festivals, often in the middle of a street. How have those dancers lasted with so many nails in their feet? Yes, it's all been great fun, all's turned out for the best, and we hope the summer season will find us going west. My best to each of you, good wishes for every year. Thanks for your part in rebuilding my cheer whenever it's low and likely to drop. You all know how to help give the black clouds a pop. And current dancers, if you attend practice faithfully and pick up your feet and keep that hair clean and trimmed oh so neat, and turn in your schedules of events in your life, and don't get sidelined too much by husband or wife. Don't sass the director, at least to his face, and keep your costumes one step of national disgrace. Your name may be chosen for the good list, and when dancing is over, not a thing will you have missed.
We got it back on now. It must have been a sign. Each and every one of us are guests here tonight, and 72. Uh-oh. Thought it was going to fall apart. 73. 74. 75. Boy, that's a good looking group to get my age now. 76, 77, 78, you'll be up for a while later. 79, 80, 81, that's when the Cripple Creek Clocker started. 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 1987. How many new dancers do we have? All right. Be seated.
For those of you who don't recognize mine, I am Marcy Smith, and I, like most of you, am a former member of the Rutherford County Square Dancers and a current member of their counterpart, the Cripple Creek Cloggers. I've had a long association with these two dance groups, and an even longer association with someone we all know, our dance director, Mr. Steve Cates. I come before you now to pay tribute to him, for without him, none of the years we've shared together as dancers would be possible. Being a member of a group such as this one takes a committed amount of time. No one has ever become a successful member without the willingness to make that commitment. But just remember, for all the hours we've spent collectively, there has been an hour spent by Mr. Cates. Hours spent working out details for trips or shows that we've all had the pleasure of taking part in. His willingness and commitment have provided each of us with some unique opportunities, including the opportunity to travel, both in the States and abroad. It has opened doors for us to meet government and state officials, politicians, and even a few celebrities. He has also been in large part responsible for us to be able to present the Folk Fest here the last several years and provide that unique cultural exchange between the countries represented and our community. This is just making a brief mention of many things he has accomplished with this group over the past 20 years. So Mr. Cates, I represent the group past and present in saying thank you for providing all of us with these opportunities. Individually, I'd like to say that I can't think of any man outside of my father who has earned my respect over the years. You have been more than a dance director to me, offering your guidance and advice many times as a teacher and a friend. It's been great to be a part of something so good that's lasted this long. Thank you for making it all possible.
Hello, Mr. Cates. I'm sure that we each have memories that we have in our hearts about the square dancers. But if we think about it, none of this would have been possible without Steve Cates. Because without Steve Cates, there would be no memories or Rutherford County square dancers. I was one of those last Thursday night that went to the square dance practice. And I was one of those that shook my head. And I was one of those that couldn't remember any of the old dances. And I was sitting there and I was trying to think of, if I had to sum up Steve Cates in as few words as possible, what would those words be? The first word that came to mind was mentor. As I look back over the years since my days with the Rutherford County Square Dancers, it became quite apparent the positive impact that Steve Cates had on all the people that were affiliated with the Rutherford County Square Dancers. Mr. Cates was always there to provide positive and sound guidance to us. He treated each dancer as an individual, and he molded us into dancers and performers as well as leaders. He taught us how to lead the other dancers, how to teach the younger dancers, and how to set the example wherever we were in the world. I'm sure, past and present dancers, you can all relate to this. And it may seem that sometime, even though Mr. Cates was a little harsh, he embarrassed us. We all knew deep in our heart it was for our own benefit and the organization of the Rutherford County Square Dancers. I think probably at one time or another that during a performance we probably weren't motivated to dance. It may have been because a 2-day bus ride and our legs were tired and aching, or it could have been the blanket parties on the bus. But or it could have been a hard day at school, or for the Rolands, a hard day in the hayfield. But once we got on the stage and Mr. Cates started talking to us, he always had a way of making us dance our hearts out. And all this was to promote the Appalachian heritage that each of us have been so proud to portray through our dancing. His dedication to the youth in Rutherford County and the surrounding areas is beyond reproach, and his continued support of this vital program is unparalleled by any other individual I can think of. In closing, I would like to thank you on behalf of all the square dancers present, past, and at this time, we would like to thank you for making